Hi, this is Patrick O'Brien. I'm the president of the American Society of Marine Artists, and I wanted to talk a little bit about presenting your artwork for jurying. We've been doing some jurying lately for online shows and in-person shows, and a number of times we get JPEGs, pictures that are sort of blurry or sometimes a lot blurry. Sometimes they're sort of askew so that they're not framed well, so you can kind of see around the edges the room that it was taken in, or maybe the easel or something. That's definitely going to sway the jury. The jury can't make a good decision about the quality of your work if the quality of the photograph of the work is bad. So really, if you really care, you really should have them professionally photographed. But if you don't want to do that because of the expense, then what most people do these days is use a phone to take a picture. These days an iPhone can take a pretty good picture of artwork, but not perfect. So let me talk about the phone a little bit and then after that I will tell you about how I created this method of taking very professional photos in my studio. So first about the phone. First thing, use lots of light. Preferably natural light. The color is better in natural light instead of artificial lights. And you don't want raking light from the side too much, unless you're really trying to emphasize the texture of the paper or the paint. You want to have the light from a more flat direction, or two different directions from either side. But definitely lots of light. The reason for that is that there's going to be less motion blur. If there's a lot of light, the camera takes it at a quicker shutter speed. So there's less motion blur just from the motion of your hand. Also, if there's a lot of light, there's less grain and noise in the image, and the image will look sharper and have better color. Another thing is, carefully line it up. Don't get it askew. Sometimes a lot of phones have a setting where you can put a grid. You can overlay a grid onto the screen, and then you can use that grid to help you line up the picture. If you want to, a better way to do it is to put your picture on an easel or tape it to a wall or something, and then use a tripod. Put your camera on a tripod and then use a self-timer, because that way you don't get any motion blur. When you have your camera on the tripod and you hit the button to take the picture, that moves the camera a little bit, and it'll create just a tiny bit of motion blur. So what I do is I use a self-timer, or I put it on 5 seconds or something, and then I hit the button, and then I stand back and I just wait for 5 seconds, and it takes it when the phone is very still. Now then, after you take a good photo, you're going to need to color correct it. Really, the photo is never perfect right out of the box like that. You're probably going to, no matter how carefully you try to align it and get it all perfectly square, I find it's usually not perfectly square. You can use your camera. Most cameras have, maybe all cameras have, a pretty good editing software where you can line it up a little bit better, straighten it out, and then do some color correction to the temperature of the color, the saturation, etc., to get it to look exactly like the actual painting. You don't want to improve the painting in the color correction. You want to try to make the idea is to make the photo look exactly like the painting, as exact as you can get it. Now, I use Photoshop for that. Hopefully, if you have some facility with Photoshop, it's better than using the phone, I think. But really, if you're going to take photos like this, you need to have some facility with editing the pictures on the phone or in Photoshop. Now, that's probably the way most people are going to take their photos. However, I sometimes need my photos to be of better quality than that. I like them to be of better quality for my website, but also for print. They're sometimes on the cover of magazines, or maybe a card or a small poster or something. And an iPhone picture isn't going to cut it for that. And I have come up with a way here in my studio, just right here where I paint my paintings on my easel, I have a way of taking pretty darn good photos, and I'll show you how I do that. So I used to send my paintings out to be photographed by a professional photographer, and that's pretty expensive. It costs several $100s each time you do that. So I finally realized what I would do is I would spend several $100s to get the equipment. Not the highest end equipment that a photographer would have, but pretty darn good stuff that's good enough for the uses that I just mentioned. The photographs that I take are not good enough to make a large giclée from. If I am going to have a giclée made, then I do have it sent out and professionally photographed. Okay, so now I'll show you the setup I use to do my photography. I keep everything that I need for photography in this bench here, right near where I use it. And ignore those triple lights on the poles. I paint under those lights, but these new lights I'm putting up are where I do my photography. Okay, here's the setup here. I'll show you how this works. First of all, you have two lights that shine onto the canvas at about a 45-degree angle from each direction, so that the canvas is evenly lit across the whole canvas. Now, I drew lines on my floor so I could line everything up. Every time I do this, I know exactly where to put this, I know exactly where to put this, and I know exactly where to put this, and I know exactly where to put my easel. So that it's all lined up. Every time I do it, it's all lined up just perfectly, because this is just my studio floor. So I literally just take a Sharpie and draw on the floor. And one key is polarized light. Now with polarized light, you will remove any reflection from your picture. And you will immediately find if you go to the trouble to use polarized light, your pictures will immediately be much, much better. I was never able to get a good photo before I realized I needed to use polarized light. And I always need to futz with them in Photoshop a lot to get the colors to be right. But then once I started using polarized light, it was all perfect. So the key is the light has to be polarized. So this is just something that I made here. Just on Amazon, I bought this thing, which is a polarizing filter. This plastic here is a polarizing filter. I just used some black foam core to cut a frame around it. Put some Velcro on it and Velcroed it into my umbrella light thing here. This is how the light comes when you buy it. And then I put this polarizing filter over the light. But you can't use a polarizing filter over the light without a polarizing filter on your camera. So this is a polarizing filter on the camera that turns to polarize the light. You know, this cost, the filter on the camera might have been $30. These might have been, I don't know how much they were, $100 maybe. Now the camera itself can be several $100s. Now this might seem like a very complicated setup and a very expensive setup. It did cost several $100s, more than $5 probably. But the point is, if I take my paintings in to be photographed professionally, that would cost, I don't know, a few $100s each time you do it. So for the price of maybe 2 different trips to the professional photographer, I've got this setup that I can use for the rest of my career. I can get any number of professional photos with this. So it may seem expensive and complicated at first, but it's way cheaper and way simpler than driving or painting over to the photographer every time. It's just right here, right in my studio. I don't even have to move my easel. So that's the way I do it. Maybe you can take some hints from this and see if you can do it the same way.